Oops.
All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What is going on, Mayo Media Network? It's not your Hamwich host on a Friday here. It's me, Nades, running it back here. Hamwich is out, probably enjoying some cold ones, enjoying some time out on the beach, out on the guy was set out on the sea yesterday when I messaged him, living his best life. Who runs better than Hamwich, really? But we're here to break it down. Second ever, no late swap again over here on DraftKings for the NBA slate. Luckily, it's not a massive slate. It's only 6 games. There is some injury news in that Clippers game. That is a pretty big piece of news that we'll try and navigate through. Again, obviously no late swap. Once the slate locks at 6, you're kind of set in stone. So definitely we'll try and navigate that. But if you guys are new, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Hope you guys are having an amazing Friday. Bring my guy Rio in. The grinder himself. This guy knows every freaking stat there is to know. He's out there crushing the slate plan. If you're not a member and not familiar with the slate plan, not sure what you're doing, we'll hit on that in a second. But Rio, man, happy Friday. What's going on, brother?
Yeah, happy Friday. I was just informed right before we got on the show that apparently it's St. Patrick's Day weekend. So sure we'll have some good stuff going on this weekend for that. But yeah, doing pretty good. It was a heartbreaker for me last night. I had the nuts in the lotto. Had PJ Washington over Daniel Gafford. If I had Gafford, shipping 100K, but instead PJ Washington decided that he forgot how to play basketball last night and shot 1 for 11 from the field, 0 for 7 from 3-point range. Got a bunch of good looks and played a ton of minutes. Just was terrible. But yeah, looking to bounce back tonight. Got a couple entries in the qualifier to get a live final seat in the $4 mini max tonight as well. Yeah, I'm actually kind of excited for the late swap slate. I don't think that last time we did late swap, I didn't do enough of the guesswork in terms of the injury stuff. I was kind of on the Malik Monk train last time, and then De'Aaron Fox got ruled out after the lock. If you ended up playing Monk, you got 50 something points out of him against Minnesota, and he was 3-4% owned. So hopefully we can pinpoint some of those guys tonight and see if we can have some of those low end plays get us to the top of the leaderboards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, when you're talking no late swap, right, you can't adjust based on injury news. You got to kind of pick your route and pick your thoughts and navigate that at the start, right, and build your teams accordingly to that, whether it's MME, whether it's your 2, 3, 4 max, 5 max teams, whatever you're playing. So we'll be talking through that the best we can. Let's say hi to a couple people. I got Newens always in the chat, my fellow Wisconsinite Newens. What's up, brother? We got Reezer in here, wins a lot, Josie, Deacon, Juice, Jake Swales. We've got a bunch of new faces here, obviously over on the Mayo Media Network channel. Again, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button here, and then also head over to the SHIPIT Nation YouTube channel as well. Hit the subscribe button over there. Helps us out a ton. Again, if you are not a member yet, you see it up there on the screen. The players is going on right now. Round 2 obviously going on. Got some good guys out there, some guys that gone low today, some other guys in my lineups in particular that did not go low today, went the opposite way, but hey, that's the nature of the beast. Still got Showdown. We got the best Showdown content in the industry right now for PGA with DGen and his stuff over here. We got you covered with shows, updated projections that change throughout the tournament based on tee times, based on everything else there. So use that promo code Masters15, gets you 15% off any package you do choose, monthly, 6-month, or annual package. Obviously, we do have the PGA only package as well. If you join right now on the monthly all access pack, use that promo code Masters15. Not only does it get you all access to all of our sports, but it also runs through, obviously, the end of the Masters tournament. If you just want to check us out for a month, takes it down to about $2 a day. So use that promo code Masters15 definitely check us out. Get over here, get in the Discord, and get behind the paywall and check out this guy right here, Rio, on the screen. Shipping tournaments every other week, right? Basically, was live for 100K last night. PJ Washington also buried me. Unfortunately, events there, but he's got the slate plan up and ready for today for premium members. So use that promo code Masters15, gets you 15% off any package you do choose. If not, just go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Helps us out a ton right here. Let's kick it off, Rio. I'll throw it over to you. Any broad slate overview quick before we go game by game? Obviously, you talked right last time, the Malik Monk situation last Friday with the no late swap. We got another no late swap slate here. Hour after the first lock, there is some Harden news right in that Clippers. That is probably the biggest piece of news. Obviously, we saw Harden sit last night. That kind of threw us all for a loop. And my guy Bones Highland came in there and just absolutely stone cold nutted on the slate. If you didn't have him at his price point, it was pretty hard to win anything when he goes out there and he's sub 5K dropping 50 points. Any broad slate overview, talking that Harden news a little bit, and anything that you're kind of seeing off the top?
And you're going to see a lot of chalk condensing around this Utah and Atlanta game, and for a good reason. Both teams pretty thin. We'll definitely get to that game later as it's the last game on the slate tonight and see if we can get some pivots. But, yeah, I mean, like the builds kind of seem like you're going with a Jokic, going with some of these Utah value pieces like a THT, and then like Marcus Satzer and Jonathan Isaac, those types of plays, and then like filling in some other pieces in the Atlanta and Utah game. I think there's some ways around it because I do like some of these games in the middle, like the Miami-Detroit game I think has a little bit of fantasy appeal. Even the first game on the slate, the Phoenix-Charlotte one has a little bit. Don't mind some of these Orlando pieces as well. So I do think there's some ways to get around it. But I do kind of agree with the chalk builds right now being the Utah and Atlanta team, and then getting some of the Denver pieces. So that's how I'm probably going to play it tonight.
Yeah, no, excellent breakdown. From a overall slate breakdown, my breakdown is it's a lot of games that feel pretty gross to me. I mean, if you look at just the Vegas totals, right, the highest total on the slate is 223. I mean, a lot of times we're seeing totals up in the upper 230s, right, even 240s this season. So definitely, I think overall is going to be a lower scoring slate. Obviously, there's a lot of chalk, like you said, condensed around some of those, like Keontae George, right, Colin Sexton, DeAndre Hunter, that we'll talk about a little bit, some of those Detroit pieces as well. So I do think it's interesting. That's kind of my 30,000 feet overview as well. If you like a spot, right, don't worry about what the total says because all the totals on this game are on the slate are pretty equivalent, right, ranging from 215 to 223, and that's not kind of a standard night here in the NBA. So should be an interesting slate. Let's kick it off with Phoenix and Charlotte here. Pulling up the injury news again. This is from a total standpoint here. 217 total, massive spread, right? Phoenix favored by 10 here. From an injury standpoint, LaMelo Ball remains out here. Eric Gordon is probable. Outside of that, the injury news really doesn't matter. McGowan's is out, right? Okogie is out, but that doesn't matter too much. Eric Gordon expected to play, expected to be back here. Big spread here. Phoenix on the road in Charlotte on the back end of a back-to-back. Any interest in this one? Where are you going from a DFS perspective?
Yeah, not a ton of interest in this game. I do think that you could make a case for these studs, the KD, Booker, Nurkic, and Bradley Beal, all in pretty good spots. But I mean, the Charlotte Hornets, they've actually been playing pretty good defense since the All-Star break, adding guys, like Grant Williams, who's always been a pretty solid defender. I think that Trey Mann, even in his own right, is a decent defender. So it could be just them playing a lot slower as well. Because this is kind of a team that we've known to be pretty fast-paced in years past, but they've been pretty slow-paced team this season, so it kind of is reflected in the total. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have a ton of interest in these guys. I think that like KD and Booker are fine. I'm probably just going to be a max one of the big, probably max two of the studs in KD, Booker, Nurkic, and Bradley Beal. I think that I like KD the best. His matchup probably going to be the better of all four. I think that Nurkic has a pretty solid matchup as well, but Charlotte's been much better defensively, especially in the interior. But KD going to be guarded by Miles Bridges tonight. Charlotte bottom 4 DVP versus power forwards this season. KD, kind of coming out of a shooting slump. He did, he was on his way to a great game last night against Boston. Then they kind of shut him down the rest of the game after the first quarter. But I mean, before that, he put up 59, 69, 35 real points, 35 real points. So I think that with the nature of the slate being pretty low scoring, a 9.6K Kevin Durant could be on the winner. But yeah, I don't love this game in particular. We have seen Phoenix be very vulnerable to lead ball handlers. So like Micic and Trey Mann, I guess, are kind of interesting, but at almost 6K in a low scoring game, how much, what really is their ceiling on this type of slate? So I'm kind of okay getting away from that. I think that Bridges is kind of okay as well. Matchup about neutral going up against Kevin Durant. Phoenix been pretty bad at giving up a ton of 3-pointers lately. So Bridges is kind of like slightly above average in every offensive category. So I think that he's just okay, can kind of get there just because he plays around 40 minutes a night. And then I'll just mention Pokachevsky. That's a OKC guy that everybody was playing, during the COVID season, during those seasons when the Thunder were really thin. But he's starting to get a little bit more run, got up to 27 minutes last game, put up 24 DK points. So if we need some value, I don't think that he's the craziest play. I don't really know exactly how much we can expect out of him on a nightly basis because their coach, Steve Clifford, said that he wasn't really going to be like a mainstay in the rotation. He said they weren't really looking to get him minutes, but it could just be because he kind of ran pretty hot last game and played pretty well. But, I mean, he's always been pretty talented. I know that Boomer, the OKC guy, has always liked Poku and was wondering why he wasn't getting minutes with OKC. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a strong lean on him if he's going to play, if these minutes are actually sticky. So I'm kind of okay just getting away from this game personally.
Yeah, no, great breakdown, amazing breakdown there. I think Beal, Booker, and Nurkic, I think in my stuff, max of one of those guys. I think they're all great plays. Probably my favorite is going to be Nurkic, just centers against the Charlotte team, 7,200. The price is right there. We know the ceiling that Nurkic can have. Coming off a massive game right last night against Boston, much tougher matchup, scored 20 rebounds here. Should have his way to a pretty easy double-double here. Obviously, he just missed the double-double last night by a field goal there. So I like Nurkic quite a bit at 7,200 here. Kevin Durant is probably my second favorite. I'm Kevin Durant over Beal or Booker. So Nurkic, my favorite. KD, my second favorite, I think. On the Charlotte side, I can't deal with the Trey Mann and Micic. They're basically splitting down the middle. They're both 6K. Right, 5,900, 6K. It's just tough for me to play those price points in this spot too, in this total, in this slow pace. I think my favorite play here, Miles Bridges. Obviously, you can play him any day just because he's basically locked into his minutes. He's got all the opportunity. But I actually like Brandon Miller a little bit here. He's going to be guarding, obviously, a very tough offensive target on the other end here. So he's going to be getting all the minutes he can handle there. I think it's a decent favorable matchup here. He does have some foul concern, right? With guarding the other side of the ball, but 7,100 in this matchup, I don't hate him. But again, overall from a DFS perspective, starting the slate off, it's not great. I don't love this game. I'd be fine with nobody from this game, but I do think you could get a little different and grab one of these guys. I feel like this game is going to be very low owned in general. So I think it's a solid contrarian spot for some of these guys, some of these studs in particular, right? Nurkic, KD, Brandon Miller, Bridges. But outside of that, don't really want to grab any value plays here or any contrarian, like kind of fringe guys here for me in that spot. Jump to the next one here. We have Miami and Detroit. In terms of this one, 215 total here. Miami favored by 8. Injury news in this one. Cade Cunningham, questionable. I didn't look at shoot around or not, but Cade Cunningham coming in questionable. Asar Thompson got ruled out. Quentin Grimes is ruled out. Bam is probable. Tyler Hero remains out, right? Kevin Love remains out. That's the main injury news, right? Bam Adebayo, Cade Cunningham, the two main ones. Touch on this game from a DFS perspective. A lot of ownership seems to be going here. Guys like Saman Fontecchio, right? Marcus Sasser probably gets a little bit of ownership here. Jaden Ivey, Terry Rozier, Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Butler. I think there's a lot of good plays. I think this is a pretty good game from a DFS perspective in nature to the slate. But where are you going?
Yeah, I'll start with the Detroit stuff because I think that the Cade news is obviously really big in terms of the outlook on the slate because that would open up a ton of value. Jaden Ivey and Marcus Sasser mainly would be the two guys that would benefit the most. But, yeah, I mean, it's kind of I do think that Cade has a pretty good chance to sit here. It's just the rotations. I don't know. I think that he might be dealing with an injury. Like his knee might not be 100%. Obviously, it's not when they list him with knee management. This was something that kept him out for a full month. But I mean, the minutes just way, way down. He didn't play the last 15 minutes of the game versus Detroit or versus Toronto last game. Only played 28 minutes, 32 minutes a game before that, 32 the game before that. And like Monty Williams' reasoning behind it was that he just said that Marcus Sasser, or the lineup they had out there with Marcus Sasser, was they wanted to close with it because that's the one that got them the lead. I mean, that's just you don't bench your star number 1 overall player for Marcus Sasser unless he's dealing with something. So I'm kind of thinking that Cade has a pretty good chance to sit here. And yeah, that would make me have a ton of interest in Sasser and Jaden Ivey. I would prefer Sasser, obviously, just for the huge price discount. I think the matchup would be a little bit tougher for Jaden Ivey. He would have a little bit more of the defensive attention because they know, he's a former lottery pick. He's really talented. So I think that they would kind of hone in on him a little bit more than they would on Marcus Sasser. So I would prefer him. And then, yeah, Fontecchio going to get another start here for Asar Thompson. I know that people are probably going to be not wanting to go back to him because he did terrible in the last game. But, I mean, the opportunity is there, and that's kind of all that you want to look at for DFS. Obviously, he did not do well. Only shot 3 for 11, 2 for 7 from deep. Great matchup versus Toronto. Just couldn't get anything going. Yeah, put up 16.5 DK points. But, I mean, the minutes, he played 38 minutes, played 37 the game before that, 32 the game before that. So he's definitely got the trust of the coaching staff. And, I mean, this is a matchup that I think a player like him could do really well at. I try to highlight it whenever we see the Heat on slates. Same reason that I liked Michael Porter Jr. the other night against Miami, and he did pretty well. This Miami team just selling out to defend the rim right now. They're one of the best rim defenses in the league, but they play a lot of zone, and that lends itself to opposing teams getting a lot of 3-point shots off. So guys that can succeed in catch and shoot situations, in 3-point situations, I think would be like a guy like Fontecchio. So I'm okay going back to him tonight, even after he just failed for us last game. And I think like Wiseman is kind of okay to keep in your player pool just because he's been playing much better, going to split the center minutes with Duren. Yeah, I don't have a strong lean on that. I do want to highlight Stanley Amude. He played 15 minutes last game, put up 20 DraftKings points he scored 5 points, 7 rebounds, 3 steals. But I mean, this has been a guy that's kind of just randomly gotten minutes at times this season. Saw him play 29 against Portland earlier in February, but he kind of got the minutes over Evan Fournier last game. So if Cade Cunningham misses, maybe we see a little bit more minutes out of Amude, just kind of somebody to keep your eye on, or maybe get some sprinkles of him in your 150 if you're doing that, the micro max tonight. And then on the Heat side of things, I really like the spot for Jimmy Butler tonight. Tougher matchup going up against Isaiah Stewart, who I do respect as a defender, but this Heat team coming off of 4 straight losses, they need to start getting some wins off. And I mean, they've lost to some pretty bad teams. They lost to the Wizards at home. So yeah, I mean, this team just definitely needs to get some wins right now. And I think that Jimmy's just going to take over. I think he's going to play a ton of minutes. He has a pretty solid ball handling role. This Detroit team been really bad in the pick and roll situations this season. So I think that he's really strong spend up at 8.4K. Kind of okay getting away from Bam here. Just the usage has not really been there. The upside hasn't really been there, sharing the court with Terry Rozier. Duren's actually been pretty solid as a defender down low. So I'm kind of okay getting off of Bam Adebayo. I mean, coming in with pretty high ownership as well. So that seems like an underweight stance for me. And I mean, the matchup really good for Terry Rozier. The Pistons are bottom 3 in DVP versus point guards. I just mentioned how they're bad in pick and roll. But I mean, man, he's looking at like 30+%. I would rather I think the leverage is just getting up to Jimmy Butler, who's coming in as the lowest owned of the big 3 for Miami, and just leaning into that. That's kind of how I'm going to play it.
Yeah, no, excellent breakdown. I'm fully aligned here. I'll start with the Miami side. I love the spot here for Jimmy Butler. All the things you alluded to. 4 straight losses here from this Miami team. Butler's kind of in a slump a little bit here. Had a good game, right? Last time he went 26, 6, and 8 in the same matchup earlier this year against the Isaiah Stewart size. It's not the greatest matchup on paper here, but we could see a little Jimmy Butler, and at 8.4, he's definitely got a ceiling with his talent level there. I mean, second half of the season here, right? Getting into the last third, basically, of the season. Jimmy Butler's going to start turning it around here. I like this matchup here. I think it's a good spot for him. He's my favorite Heat play by far. And then my second favorite play would be Terry Rozier here. I think his matchup is pretty solid, right? Jaden Ivey, not a great defender on the other end. Terry Rozier here, 6'8", Don't hate him. I think he's got a good matchup and a pretty solid price point there. So I don't know if I'd play those two guys together. I think one or the other, Jimmy Butler or Rozier. I prefer Jimmy Butler, but I think Rozier is fine. Not going to get to Bam, right? I just don't like the spot. I don't like the matchup for him inside. Pretty much just my interest there. I think Duncan Robinson would be fine too as well. But my main interest, Jimmy Butler, Terry Rozier. And then on the Detroit side, I also think Cade Cunningham sits, right? That knee injury is kind of frightening, right? Knee injury is not a good thing to have when you're playing 35, 40 minutes a game, running up and down the court, and you're the main ball handler there. So brings guys like Marcus Sasser into play for sure. Think he's good. Jaden Ivey, not the greatest matchup for him, but I think he's fine, just especially if Cade misses. My favorite Detroit piece is definitely Fontecchio here. Love going back to him at 5'3" here to all the points that Rio alluded to. I liked him before Rio even kind of sold me on him even more. So I think it's a good game. I think you can grab a lot of pieces. Obviously, Cade news is big. We should have that news before the slate locks, so definitely pay attention to that because that is big. It's going to bring a lot of guys in from Detroit into play. If he misses, a lot of usage to go around there. So overall, pretty good game in nature of the slate. I like some pieces on both sides there. Let's jump to the next game here, Orlando and Toronto. In terms of this one, 217 total, 8-point spread here. Orlando favored by 8. In terms of injury news in this one, RJ Barrett's out. Outside of that, Gary Trent is questionable. Besides that, really no news here. A lot of ownership going to Jonathan Isaac at 3.7 here. Touch on that. Touch on any other plays you have in this one, Orlando, Toronto.
Yeah, man. Sucks to – I just heard about the RJ Barrett stuff. He had been out for a couple of games due to personal reasons, but apparently it's because his younger brother just passed away. So condolences to him. That's definitely super sad to see, but he's been playing really well over here. So hopefully he can get back on the court soon. But, yeah, really sad stuff. But as far as this game goes, though, always get pretty excited seeing Toronto on the slate. I mean, this team is just a train wreck defensively, one of the worst teams defensive rating-wise since January 1st, getting beat up all over the place, bottom 3 rim defense, bottom 6 3-point defense. They're just getting killed all over the court. They don't have any good defenders right now, especially if Gary Trent were to miss. I mean, they're just going to be extremely thin in terms of defense. Magic continue to play really, really good defense here, but pretty, a little bit more vulnerable to pick and roll situations. They're bottom 5 this season in pick and roll points allowed. So I think that the Toronto side is pretty easy for me because the only one I'm really considering, and I don't really love it because the price tag, is Emmanuel Quickly. Touch time has been really good for him. Got the the lead ball handling role, returned from the injury, played full minutes. So I don't think we have to worry about any sort of minutes limit on him. I just kind of struggle to see Toronto able to keep this game close here. But yeah, Quickly would be the only guy that I'm considering on Toronto. And then on Orlando, I really like the spot for both Paulo and Franz. Toronto, terrible rim defense. These are two guys that have, I think the Magic are first or second in terms of at rim frequency scoring this season. It might be them and the Pacers 1 and 2, but this is a team that's going to attack the paint. So I think you want the guys that are going to score down low. So like Paulo and Franz look really good. We've seen Paulo he's kind of like the LeBron James of this team. Like he has a pretty good touch time for a forward, leads the team in touch time with over 5 minutes. So he always has the ball in his hands. The potential assists look really good. He's a really good passer. So I think that he's, a really strong spend-up option tonight, 8.9K. I really like this matchup for him. Same thing for Franz. We've seen him beat up on really weak rim defenses this season. Kills the Wizards, who are dead last in rim defenses. Toronto getting much, much worse. So I think that he could have a pretty solid game here, and it's coming in pretty low on. So I like him a good bit at 7.2K. I want to like Wendell Carter here because we just saw what Jalen Duren did to this team, but they're just two different players. Duren is going to, he's super athletic, going to be crashing the boards a ton, going to be down low, just, bully balling Kelly Olynyk, whereas like Wendell Carter Jr., more of the like pick and pop screen guy, doesn't have like a super, big physical presence down low. So I do want to like Wendell Carter, but I could see the upside for him here, but I just don't think that it's apples to apples in terms of comparing him and Jalen Duren. And then, Jonathan Isaac, I think that he's a totally fine option at 3.7K because this Toronto team, outside of being terrible defensively, I think that they are a team that he could have like a pretty big stocks game against. This team is they're really young. They have a lot of guys that are very turnover prone, just under talented. So I think that Isaac could definitely capitalize off that. He's been playing pretty well lately, but you know what you're getting out of him. You're capped around like 20 minutes, I think is like the absolute ceiling of him, but like 18 to 16 is about where I would expect him to get his minutes most nights. He's been, 20, 22, 25, 23 in his last 4 games. So yeah, he could definitely, I mean, that would be very valuable on this type of slate tonight. So I kind of am okay with the Jonathan Isaac chalk, but somebody exact same positional eligibility, $200 cheaper on the same team, Mo Wagner, who we've seen at times. I mean, he actually has a ceiling. We've seen 30 to 40 out of him. So that looks like a pretty sharp pivot if you're looking to make some sort of leverage move in large field tournaments. I think that Mo Wagner would be the guy you look to. Just, it's pretty easy straight line pivot on the same team where you kind of double up on your leverage right there. So that's where I'm going in this game.
No, excellent breakdown. I'll echo a lot of the same things you said. I think my favorite play in this game is just Franz, right? Raptors right now have absolutely 0 rim protection. Franz leads the team in rim possessions. He's 7.2K. This is a classic explosion spot. I think Paul is good too. I don't know if I'd play them together. I think one or the other. In terms of overall upside, I think ceiling upside. I think Paulo has a little bit higher ceiling just due to the nature, right, of what he can do. But I just like the spot and the price more for Franz here. Value outside of maybe if we get that Cade Cunningham news, right? Value isn't great on the slate. So I mean, when you're saving $1,500, does make a difference on this slate to get off of some of that sparse value, right? Like a Larry Nance or something like that we're seeing right now. Obviously, if Cade Cunningham were to miss, that changes the entire dynamic of the slate, right? Because a lot of those Detroit values come in or mid-tier Detroit guys. But Franz, really like the spot from him. On the Toronto side, I agree with you. Quickly would be the only guy, but I'm really not getting to anyone on this Toronto side. They're just a dumpster fire. Orlando's very good defensively. Easy cross-off spot for me at Toronto. And then I don't hate the spot for Wendell Carter. I think the price is right. The matchup is good. I think he could easily get a double-double here. He seems like more of a safe play. I just don't know if the slate breaking ceiling is there in this spot, just the way he plays, just the way the matchup is. But I mean, it's hard to ignore that. It's hard to doubt that he's going to score at least 10 points and get 10 plus rebounds here. Toronto's terrible with rebounding. So Wendell Carter should be able to suck up all those rebounds on the inside. I think he's a good option at that center play. Got to put him up against some of these other centers on the slate, right? We're going to touch on Larry Nance in the next game. He's getting a little ownership at his price point, just being a value play there. We got obviously Jokic against the Spurs on the slate if you want to spend all the way up. So we'll touch on that. But overall, I think it's a pretty good game. Orlando is my main interest in this one. Franz, my favorite play by far. And then obviously I agree with your take there on the Jonathan Isaac. Think it's a good match. I mean, it's a soft matchup for him. Minutes are always the concern there. He's just not going to see over 23, 22 minutes. But at 3.7 as a value play, I don't think it's the craziest one. But coming in with a lot of ownership, he is definitely volatile, especially with the minutes there. And if this game gets out of hand, I just don't know. I mean, I don't think with his injury background, they're going to run him out there a ton. So overall, a decent game from the Orlando side there. 3 games left. If you guys are new, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Helps us out a ton here. Next one, we have Clippers and the Pelicans in terms of the total, 217 total. New Orleans, 7-point favorites at home here. Injury news in this one, the big piece, right? James Harden, questionable. Paul George is back. Kawhi Leonard is in there. Cody Zeller is back as well. Talk about the James Harden piece, right? Because if he were to miss, I mean, it's hard to ignore. Bones Highland at 4.3, again, would likely draw the start again at 4.3K. That'd be a value play that obviously would become elite on the slate. But again, we're not going to have this news before those first 2 games for sure lock. And then obviously that 6:30 game locks. But again, no late swap. How are you building your teams in terms of that Harden news? Talk on that, and then talk on anyone from the Pelican side that you have interest in as well.
Yeah, tough to really break down how to attack this without knowing the news with James Harden. We're kind of just hoping that we'll get that news early in the day enough to where we can adjust it before the slate locks. But Yeah, I mean, this is like the classic thing from like Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox last week, where you can kind of lead into the situation. If James Harden were to miss, you're bumping up Kawhi, you're bumping up PG, bumping up. I mean, really everybody. Norm Powell, Zubac, obviously Bones Highland would draw another start and be a really solid value play. I don't know. This game just it feels like one that he probably would return in, because this is a pretty big game in terms of playoff seeding for the Western Conference, because these are the fourth and fifth seeded teams in the West right now. Which is I thought that Kawhi would have missed last night and then be rested up for this game. He obviously played through the back injury, which I thought was I mean, everybody thought it was a lot worse than what it apparently is. It was just back spasms, but like he left the arena limping and stuff. So I thought he was a lot more injured than he actually was. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of am expecting Harden to be back tonight. I think that I'm okay still getting to like I like Paul George in this matchup regardless, just because the Pelicans have been a bit more vulnerable at times to 3-point shooters. Ty Lue talking about getting Paul George more touches in the offense, just like getting more ball handling for him, kind of starting to get him ramped up more so for the playoffs, just because they know how crucial he'll be for this team in the playoffs time. And I feel like he's been, in and out of the lineup a ton this year. Like he gets going a lot. He starts to look really, really good and healthy, and then he misses some time. So I think that this is kind of the time they want to start to ramp him up heading into playoffs right now. So I like Paul George regardless tonight. I mean, that's pretty much it. Like I think I would lean into the Paul George stuff more so. I don't really want to have like a super strong overweight stance on Bones Highland, because I kind of am thinking that James Harden is more 70-30 to play tonight, but playing 150 tonight, so I'll definitely have to manually force in some Bones lineup, because I think that even like we talked about it pre-show, like if you're left with Bones at 4.3K and James Harden is in, like it's not the worst thing in the world. It's obviously not what you want. It's not ideal, but like even in a couple games recently against Chicago, 4 games ago, 13 minutes put up 21 DraftKings points. Against Milwaukee, 21 minutes put up 25 DraftKings points. So like we know that he's got upside when he plays. Maybe with him, playing really well last night, they just want to give him more run regardless. So you can kind of tell yourself a story there that maybe he's okay to play regardless. But yeah, I think I'm just going to lean more into the Paul George stuff personally. And then on the Pelican side, I think the only guy I'm really considering is Zion. I just like what I've been seeing out of him lately. His role is really good. Touch time is way up. The drives are up. He put up a huge game against Cleveland, who is one of the better rim defense in the league. So I don't really have any doubts that he could do the same to a Clippers team with Zubac down low, going up against a slightly hobbled Kawhi Leonard in a really big game. We can see the minutes get up there for him. So yeah, I think Zion is in a pretty good spot here. I think that he's my favorite Pelican. And I would probably just be like a max 1 of probably max 2 actually of Zion, Ingram, and CJ, because CJ's price is coming way down, but the usage has come down as well. Trey Murphy, I'll always have him in my player pool just for the fact that he has the 50-point, 40-point upside off the bench if the shot is falling, because the opportunity is there for him. They want to give him run. He doesn't need more than 26 to 28 minutes to reach value. He's done it a bunch of times lately. And if the game does go more small, I think that maybe they run Trey Murphy out there, move Zion up to the 5 or something like that. They'll probably go with Larry Nance, but I do think that his minutes are pretty safe, and the upside has clearly been there for him. Clippers are slightly falling off in terms of defending the 3-point line. So yeah, interest in him. I don't think I'm really going to get to like the Larry Nance or Joe Val stuff. I don't really see enough upside for them to really even consider them for GPPs personally. So yeah, mainly just Zion, Trey Murphy, and then Paul George for me.
Yeah, I don't hate the Larry Nance thing just because I think his minutes could tick up here. Joe Val, right, got ran off the court last time these two teams played, right, played 11 minutes. Because, I mean, I just don't think they need Joe Val here. So I don't hate a Larry Nance at 3.6. Again, not the greatest play. I don't know if I get to Larry Nance in 3-max stuff, but definitely would keep him in your pool in tournaments. You could see a minutes kind of ceiling out of him here in this matchup. And at 3.6, don't think it's a terrible spot. It's a pretty solid matchup as well for him. Zion's definitely my favorite play by far in this game. Zion is just behind SGA in drives per game right now in the entire NBA. Playing at his best right now. He's 8.3. Fits the build and the nature of the slate as well. So I do like Zion quite a bit. From the Clippers side, I don't have a lean. Paul George, I think, has the best best quote-unquote matchup out of any of these guys, and he's 8K, so I don't hate that. Obviously, if Harden misses, he would benefit there. The Bones Highland thing, I think he's fine to keep in your pool, but again, it's a risk. I think he's going to get minutes either way, right? Because he's playing good right now. He's been playing right around 20 minutes or so lately, so I think he's fine. But again, I don't know in single entry and 3-max stuff, unless we get this news before lock, that you can play a guy at 4-3, right? Bones Highland, that could be capped at about 18 minutes, right? If Harden comes back in a big game. So not the greatest game from a DFS perspective. Zion Williams, the best play in my opinion from that game. Let's talk about this next game here. Denver, San Antonio. We got the Jokic and Wemby show here. In terms of the total, 221 total, second highest total on the slate. Obviously, these last two games have the highest totals of the entire slate. Think they're definitely good. Obviously, that next game is very good between Atlanta and Utah. But from this game, it is a big spread, right? Denver on the road here, 10-point favorites on the road. In terms of injury news, not too much injury news in this one. Really, Keldon Johnson's back. I mean, there's really no injury news in this game. Basically, both these squads are fully healthy. You have the Pop situation on San Antonio. Some of those minutes are pretty sporadic here. Is it a spend-up spot at 11-8 to get up to Jokic? What about a Wemby going up against Jokic here? Do you think Wemby shows out against Jokic here? You got Jamal Murray at 8-1 against the Spurs. Michael Porter Jr. still in that mid-tier at 6'4". He's always got a ceiling if he's hitting his shots. Where are you going, Denver, San Antonio?
Yeah, I mean, I have interest in both of Wemby and Jokic tonight. I think that everybody really should. I mean, anytime you see Wemby, sub 5%, sub whatever 10% ownership, I think you have to have some interest, because it's really, there's two guys on the slate that have that slate breaking upside, I think, and it's obviously Jokic and Wemby, two guys that are facing each other. I mean, Jokic is my top spend tonight, and it's not really close. Even with Wemby down low, you would think that the interior defense would get much better for San Antonio, but it really hasn't gotten much better. Their 3-point defense, which was really struggling earlier this season, has improved a ton, but the interior defense has been kind of slightly below average. We saw what Alperen Sengun just did to Wemby last week or 2 weeks ago, put up the career night. And yeah, I mean, Jokic he's the top spend on the slate. There's not much else to say. I think that he's a great play tonight, and I'm definitely going to play a ton of him. A little bit concerned about the minutes for these guys, though, because Mike Malone, after the game against Miami, said that they were trying to find a place to give Jamal Murray a rest because he's been playing a ton of minutes lately. I mean, I get that, but for you to come out and say that after the game is, I don't know. That doesn't sit well with me. A lot of people that have money on the line, I get, like, these coaches don't care about our fantasy line and stuff like that, but like come on, bro, let's give us a little heads up. Because he didn't close last game. They let Reggie Jackson close over him. He only played 31 minutes. Just very hurtful. But he'd been playing a ton of minutes before that, 39, 37, 37, 42, and 38 in his last 5 games. So it made sense to give him some rest. But he also said the same thing about Jokic. They said they wanted to kind of cut his minutes down a little bit. Not sure you can really do that with the Nuggets looking to lock up the first seed in the West right now. So yeah, I just don't think that you can't rest Jokic much. So I don't think that he's really at risk, but maybe Jamal is a little bit more at risk of just the minutes ceiling coming down a little bit. But yeah, I like the spot for him as well. Spurs are bottom 4 in pick and roll defense this season. I think that Jamal and Jokic really have the best 2-man pick and roll game in the whole league. So yeah, I think that he's a pretty solid option at 8.1K. MPJ, I mentioned about how the Spurs are starting to eliminate the catch and shoot stuff against 3-point shooters, but MPJ he's shooting the ball really well right now, and price tag looks really good for him. He's kind of an outlier in terms of these numbers because he's so much taller than anybody that's going to be defending him. 6'10". I mean, he has the ability to shoot over anybody just with the jump shot. I mean, he gets really high up, and he's already going to be having a height advantage over whoever's guarding him. So I don't think that the numbers really mean much to him. You're kind of just banking on him having a good shooting night, and I don't think you have to worry about the minutes coming down here for defense or anything like that. You're not really worried too much about anybody on the Spurs side of things. So I think the MPJ, pretty good upside here. Aaron Gordon is kind of interesting because I do think that he's going to be guarding Victor Wembanyama tonight, just because teams kind of, I'm sure that everybody pays attention in the NBA to how to defend guys, but if you saw how Dylan Brooks was defending Wembanyama a couple of games ago. Did a really good job containing him. And I think that Aaron Gordon is kind of similar in his archetype in terms of a defender. So I think that they probably put Aaron Gordon on him. Wemby been pretty turnover prone at times this season. So, with the Spurs being a weaker rim defensive team, maybe we could see Aaron Gordon get near a double-double, get some stocks in there, and then look to pay off that 5.9K price tag, which I feel is pretty low for him. So I don't mind Aaron Gordon at all. And then on the Spurs side, I'm really just considering Wemby. But, I mean, man, he's coming in super low owned. I don't even have much to say from, like, a matchup standpoint because on paper it's not very good. But, I mean, he's got 70-point upside, and that's enough for me to get some exposure to him. So, yeah, I don't mind him at all at 10.5K, just coming in super low owned. So that's really where I'm going in this one.
No, excellent breakdown. I'll keep this one pretty short. Jokic and Murray, obviously – great plays here. It is frightening, right, that they want to keep Murray's minutes down, right? Malone said that. And, I mean, at 8-1, it is a great matchup for him. It is also a big spread, right? 10-point spread, 10-point favorites here. The matchup gets out of hand for sure. He's going to lose minutes. Same thing with Yoke, but Yoke still has the highest ceiling by far to anyone on the slate, in my opinion. 11-8. Tough to get up to him with some sporadic value on the slate. But, again, he has the opportunity to score 90 to 100 DraftKings points anytime he touches the court, right? So I think he's fine. I think Jamal Murray's fine. Michael Porter Jr., I think, is going to be the chalkiest nugget here. I mean, this dude's shooting almost 60% from the field right now. If that sustains, I mean, that'd be great, right? He's shooting 48.8% from three-point range right now this month, almost 60% from the field. He's a shooter. That's what he is. If he's not hitting his shots, he's not going to keep chucking. If he's hitting his shots, he's going to keep chucking, and that's where his ceiling comes in at 6'4". But I agree with you. I think I prefer Aaron Gordon a little bit here at much lower ownership. Aaron Gordon's going to draw the Wemby matchup, which isn't good. But from a defensive standpoint, he could run into some foul trouble there. But his minutes are going to be locked in to pretty much every time Wemby's on the court. Aaron Gordon's going to be out there trying to defend him. So I think Aaron Gordon's a solid play. On the Spurs side, I mean, Trey Jones is an okay play, I think, at 5'9". Wemby, obviously, anytime he's sub 10% owned, it's a tough matchup for him. But again, the dude's a freak. I mean, he can go off on anyone. Devin Vassell, I don't think is a terrible play, but really not a ton of interest from the Spurs side. It's mainly Jokic or Murray. I would say I'd prefer Murray, but again, the minutes do scare me. Right, the coach speak, the minutes not closing last game. That is a concern at 8-1 in the 10-point spread as well. So overall, a decent game. But this next game we're going to talk about, I think, is the best game on the slate. From a fantasy perspective, I'm sure you're going to have a lot to talk about here. Highest total on the slate in terms of this one, closest spread, right? Just a 2-point spread. Atlanta favored by 2 on the road here, 223 total. In terms of injury news, quite a bit of injury news, or not quite a bit of injury news, but Jalen Johnson is questionable in this one, which is pretty big. And then Bogdanovich is questionable as well. On the Utah side, Clarkson remains out. Chris Dunn is out. Okongwu is also out on the Atlanta side. We do have some questionable tags, mainly Jalen Johnson and Bogdanovich, right? 2 big pieces of questionable news from Atlanta. DeAndre Hunter seems to be a pretty good play, right? Obviously, a great spot here. One of the highest owned plays on the slate, at least it's looking like right now. And then the trio of Horton Tucker, Keontae George, Colin Sexton, also getting a lot of ownership. DeAndre Hunter, I think, is a great play too at 5'6". I know you'll touch on him. Pretty good game here. It's the last game of the slate, 2.5 hours after that first game locks. There's a lot of questionable news on the Atlanta side. Do you have a lean one way or the other? How you building teams? Touching on that news, because obviously there's no late swap, so you can't swap once you kind of set it and forget it at 6 p.m. You're kind of set in stone. So where are you going last game of the night here, Rio?
Yeah, great game to attack for sure. I'll start with the Hawks stuff from an injury standpoint, because I do think that this is kind of the best spot to attack in terms of the non-late swap stuff. Bogdanovich downgraded to an illness tag with a questionable injury designation. So, yeah, I mean, traveling into elevation, his coach said, Quinn Snyder said he's been really sick. So he's coming in. I'm seeing pretty high ownership on him right now, which makes sense if you consider the matchup. You consider the role with no Sadiq Bey and no Trae Young. So yeah, I mean, this is the spot where I'm going to be taking a extreme underweight stance and bumping up some of these other guys, mainly Jalen Johnson and DeAndre Hunter. Jalen Johnson, I think that he's set to make his return tonight after the multi-game absence with the ankle injury. But I mean, we've seen, I mean, even as recent as yesterday, two games ago, Devin Booker returned from the ankle injury, immediately stepped back into 38 minutes. So, I mean, Jalen Johnson, the Hawks team doesn't really have a ton to play for per se, but Jalen Johnson has some incentives to play for because I believe he's still in the running for most improved player. I don't know where he stands in terms of the odds, but I know that he's in the top 2 or 3 in terms of the voting right now for most improved. But I think that he needs to play every single game the rest of the way in order to be eligible to win most improved player. So yeah, I'm thinking that he's making his return tonight. The team is just so thin with their forward positions that I mean front court in general with no Okongwu, with no Sadiq Bey. So yeah, I mean I think that he kind of steps into a pretty sizable workload right away. And yeah, I mean I'm gonna take the stance that he's in. I love targeting Jalen Johnson in these types of matchups where the other team plays fast paced, the other team is terrible in transition, and that's exactly what you have here. Jazz are dead last in transition defense this season. So these are the type of matchups that I want to fire up a Jalen Johnson type player. So I'll definitely have some of him. DeJounte Murray to me is, I would say like matchup wise and price wise, probably the top play on the slate. Jokic is top spend just because he's got the highest upside. But I mean, the role for DeJounte obviously is amazing with no Trae Young. He's averaging almost 50 DK points in all the games without Trae Young this season. Around 30% usage rate, 34% assist percentage. Jazz are dead last versus point guards in terms of DVP. So, I mean, he's got everything going for him here. So, yeah, he's definitely going to be a core play for me tonight, and I'm going to look to get over the field on him in my MME stuff. Some other guys on the Atlanta side of things, I think that, like, Capella is pretty interesting because if Bogdan is out, maybe he sees a slight uptick in the usage, slight uptick in minutes just with them being thin. But, I mean, the matchup, like, I don't know. It's neutral. Jazz are pretty solid with the rim protection, so I don't really have a strong lean on Capella per se. But I mean, if you get like 26, 28 out of Capella, you could definitely pay off the tag. But yeah, I mean, I like DeAndre Hunter, somebody that you mentioned earlier when we were talking about this. But yeah, I think that he's another really strong option. I'm kind of considering a max 1 of Hunter, Jalen Johnson, because if Jalen Johnson were to be out, then I think Hunter is going to benefit a ton. I'm already going to be taking an underweight stance on Bogdan, so I'm going to bump up Hunter and Jalen in those runs. But I'm probably going to be a max 1 of those 3 guys altogether, just because I think that just from like a leverage standpoint, I think I want to like go all in on one. So if one of those guys misses, I think the other one benefits. I don't really want to have too many of them because I'll already have a ton of DeJounte. And then, like, I guess Bruno Fernando at 4.3K, another value to consider just because they are splitting the center minutes down the middle. But, like, I'm not looking to get anywhere below that. I'm not looking to get to the Vit Krejcis or Garrison Matthews, Hamwich's boy, Wes Matthews, Trent Forrest. Like, no thank you on any of these guys. And then the Jazz side of things, yeah, they're going to be very thin tonight, especially at the guard position. No Jordan Clarkson, no Chris Dunn, and then obviously no Lauri Markkanen. So, yeah, I mean, Colin Sexton and Keontae George look really, really good tonight. The Hawks defense surprisingly been much better lately. They're top 5 since Trae Young has missed, which makes sense. I mean, you think about it, Trae Young, he likes to play really fast paced. He's just a turnstile on defense, probably one of the worst defenders in the league, I would say. And DeJounte, I always thought was a really, really good defender. You add in some of these other lengthy guys like DeAndre Hunter, like the Vit Krejci's pretty solid defender. So makes sense why they've gotten better, but the opportunity looks like it's going to be very, very strong for these guys, Keontae and Colin Sexton. I could see 35 to 38 minutes from both these guys. Maybe even Keontae touches 40. He's done it a couple times in the past couple weeks. But yeah, I mean, Keontae George in particular has had a really, really strong role leading the team in touch time this season. The pick and roll stuff been really good for him. Atlanta pretty good defending the pick and roll, but I mean, I don't know. I just think that the role is going to be so strong for him that I'm willing to overlook that. Kind of same. The matchup seems a little bit better for Colin Sexton because he's much more capable of getting downhill and attacking the rim. And Atlanta had been a pretty weak rim defense all season long. So I think that he's really good here. Put up almost 40 DK points the first time these teams faced off. So he looks really strong. I'm kind of off John Collins. I think that the return of Walker Kessler has definitely hurt his upside. I would be okay getting to Walker Kessler because the Hawks are going to be probably running out 48 true center minutes tonight. So you're going to need Walker Kessler out there. He put up a really good game last time the team faced off as well. And then, I want to hear your take on THT because I'm a little bit skeptical on how many minutes they're giving him. And I think that anytime you get THT 60 plus, 70 plus % ownership, it's worth a underweight stance or even a fade, depending on the tournaments you're in. Just because there's so many ways that it could go wrong. They're trying to get Sensabaugh more run. They have talked up Johnny Juzang. They've talked up Micah Potter. Like, I think there's some ways that it could go sideways for THT tonight, but interested to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I don't like THT here tonight, especially at that ownership. I mean, I love Colin Sexton here. Colin Sexton, I think, is an amazing play. I love DeJounte Murray. I love DeAndre Hunter. Those three guys are core plays for me. Definitely here tonight. I think Keontae George is a great play. Bogdanovich, I'm going to be way underweight on. I don't think if he doesn't play, that's great, but he is projecting to be pretty high owned right now. Bogdanovich, if he doesn't miss, obviously Jalen Johnson gets boost, right? Murray gets a boost, Hunter gets a boost. But outside of that, I mean, it's pretty much DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Hunter for me in this game, Colin Sexton, Keontae George. I know that's kind of the chalky route to go. Those are the best plays, but again, I think there's different ways to get there's ways to get unique, avoiding the Larry Nances or the Jonathan Isaacs right in that value center range. I think is one way to get different with that kind of roster build. I don't know if I'm going to get. I don't think I'm going to get to any of these secondary pieces here, like the Fernandos and those other guys. It's pretty much those four main guys. Not going to get to any of these Krishis or anything like that. So it's the four big dogs for me in this game is kind of how I'm approaching it. Taylor Horton-Tucker definitely underweight on that 3-9. I'm going to try and build a more balanced team that kind of avoids that with my spend being DeJounte Murray. You can build a lot of nice teams with DeJounte Murray at 9.5 and then avoid a lot of that 3K range of the Jonathan Isaacs, the Taylor Horton-Tuckers, the Larry Nances that are going to be – all three of those guys are going to be very highly owned in terms of projections, in terms of owner, in terms of optimizers. So trying to avoid those three and building a different route to that is kind of the route that I'm taking. Maybe playing guys like Terry Rozier and some of that I think are underpriced for the matchup for the role. And the spot tonight is kind of how I'm going. But great game here. Definitely be cognizant of when you're building your teams on how to approach it in terms of injury news. I think Rio broke it down great. And if you want to see what Rio is going to be on, head over to SHIPITNation.com. Use that promo code MASTERS15. Check out his slate plan. Check out his core plays. My core play is already up. I just finished up my core play while we were on the show here talking through it. Seems like a pretty solid route. Obviously, there's not a lot of news that we're going to probably get before lock here. No late swaps. So I'm feeling pretty confident. Obviously, any changes will be updated in yellow. But any final closing remarks here, Rio, for the people before we get out of here and head to the weekend?
No, I hope that everybody has a good weekend. Saw a lot of questions in chat. We're not really able to get to them tonight. Just taking a little bit of time talking about the non-late swap stuff. But yeah, so I mean, I'm pretty excited about this one. I got a couple shots in the qualifier to get myself a live final seat before the tournament fills up. So hopefully I can get that and get my weekend started off to a good start. I know that you got some fun stuff planned. So hopefully we have a good, successful night over here, win some money, and get the weekend off to a good start.
Yeah, let's get the weekend off to a good start. Good luck to you and everybody else in the chat in your tournaments tonight. Hopefully you get a live final seat, and if it's not you, hopefully it's another Ship It Nation member over here. Good luck tonight. Hope to see those Ship It Nation logos at the top. For Rio, I'm Nadesify. We'll catch you guys next time. Let's ship it.